Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, March 11th, 2024. I am Dave Biddle. I am joined by Dan Rubin. So much stuff to get into. The first week of spring ball. Oh, man, just so much good stuff. The Buckeyes are off this week for spring break, so hopefully there's no news this week. No news is good news this week, but a lot of good stuff from last week Dan and I are going to get into. Also going to finish the show talking about Jake Diebler. All he does is win, no matter what. I guess he does have the one loss, but we don't need to talk about that. 5-1 for Jake Diebler and the Buckeyes. Is he going to keep the job? Is he going to take the Buckeyes to the big dance? Is Dusty May going to be the next head coach at Ohio State? We'll finish the show with that after we talk a ton about football. Before we do that, I want you guys to know about our new sponsor, Mando. Great company. My guys, do you ever lift a little too hard or just forget to apply your daily deodorant and get hit by a truckload of BO from all directions? Does that 3-in-1 shampoo leave you needing a second shower just a few hours after the first? From the founders of Lumi, Mando Whole Body Deodorant is helping men conquer their odor in a new way. Formulated with mandelic acid, Mando has a long-lasting 72-hour odor control that actually stops odor before it starts. Best part is you can put Mando everywhere. Pits, packages, feet, back, knees, everywhere. To top it off, Mando's cologne quality scents were created with men in mind. Pro tip, try their best-selling scent, Bourbon Leather. It's a game changer. And we have a special offer for you guys. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code and link. Use code Bucknuts at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and two free products of your choice. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code Bucknuts at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. Bam. You can't even tell, Dan, but I smell great today. I mean,
you almost can.
Leather? Are you kidding me? Bourbon leather? I mean, come on. You can probably smell it just through the computer screen right now. All right. So people are taking this Denzel Burke quote about Will Howard and running with it. Denzel Burke, after 2 days, and he even prefaced it. He's like, it's 2 practices. Because someone's like, one of my colleagues was like, what do you think of Will Howard so far? Kind of you think it's like a softball question. Denzel Burke keeps it real. He takes a long pause. He's like, Will Howard, I need to see more. And people are like running with it. If you get on our Michigan 24/7 board, they're like, oh, this Ohio State quarterback's a bust. You have people saying now Devin Brown's going to be the quarterback. I think all that's nonsense. They didn't bring Will Howard here to be the backup. He's getting paid a ton of NIL money. 2 practices. I don't make anything of it. I think he's going to be QB1. Your thoughts?
I agree with you. I'll preface this by saying I don't put much stock into what people say in front of a microphone. I've told you this before. A lot of people tell the truth, but when you put a microphone in someone's face, they tend to say what you want to hear at times. I'm not saying Denzel was doing that. I also think he's only seen him for a few practices, so maybe he actually just wants to see, more than less. He's been around Devin Brown more. I'm sure Denzel has high expectations for the team, and you talk about a quarterback coming in, you want to see him get stuff done. I don't have any overwhelming concerns about this. If you remember, Denzel's not much for, in fact, he kind of calls it straight. So I don't make a huge amount out of what people say in front of a camera. I think you have to take everything with a grain of salt. And then when you consider Denzel Burke has kind of always been one to answer things with a little bit of an edge, it doesn't bother me. Maybe he thinks he's motivating him. Who knows? But I don't have much concern in the global sense that when the first game comes around, number 18 will be the main guy. Not at all, actually.
Let me ask you this. I kind of joked about this yesterday on the show I do here in Columbus. And I don't know if I was really joking. If I'm Will Howard, and this might not work out well for me because Denzel Burke is no pushover. He's no weak, get out of the way corner. He will come up and pop you. But I'm Will Howard. I got 50 pounds on him. He's telling the media he needs to see more out of me. The very first time we scrimmage, and I know the quarterbacks are supposed to be off limits, and I know this might not work out well for me because Denzel Burke can hit, but and I know it almost wouldn't even be fair because Denzel Burke's going to think he can't hit the quarterback. But if I'm Will Howard, the very first play, I know I am running as hard as I can and crashing into Denzel Burke as hard as I can. And again, it might not work out well, but you need to see more out of me. You're going to tell the media that. You're going to see more out of me. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest that for either one of them because I don't want them to get injured personally. I remember my junior year of high school, we got rid of the Oklahoma drill because our best player got hurt, and it was like good for morale, not good for the games. So yes, I get it. But let's just hope that can be argued maybe over a video game, perhaps an arm wrestling match. Nothing where their helmets are on and they make contact. That's not what we need.
Yeah, it's almost like, I don't know. I just, when you tell them, I'm a media guy saying this, and I'm like, I don't know. I like it. I love, you know how I feel about Denzel Burke. I love Denzel Burke, but it's like, I have mixed emotions about it. I like him keeping it real, but almost, I don't know. And then you have everybody taking that little quote and running with it. I don't know. So I have mixed emotions about it. All right, let's move on.
I will say this, Dave, before we go any further. I do like if practice has a little bit of an edge to it. One thing when you get together, what's essentially an all-star team, I think people think, oh, not everyone's from Ohio. These guys aren't tough. They're just, all-stars. So a little friction, positive friction between the offense and the defense never hurt anybody.
Dan Rubin, this is no surprise, but you're not the only one from Dayton in the live feed here.
Not only that,
Dayton's always been a huge market for us. Like Columbus is our number one market for Bucknuts, always has been. Number two is Dayton, like over Cleveland.
A little more,
Cleveland's a huge market for us too. We're worldwide, baby. What's that?
My boy Frank Carone, Kefauver, that is a little deep. That is one of the main drags in the ghetto or the student neighborhood of UD. And I lived at 307 Kefauver at one point. And then we moved to Lowe's. If you guys went to UD, Lowe's, the house that had the volleyball court instead of a house, which has now been a house built on it, that was my house. My wife was 440 Lowe's, and the rest is marital bliss history, Dave.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, and call it the ghetto. That was always cool. I thought that was
not
one
allowed.
of the things that was like cool about Dayton was calling the houses where all the students live the ghetto.
People
You're
don't
not allowed.
know
That's now been outlawed.
If you've never been to the University of Dayton, it's surrounded by about a neighborhood with maybe 6 blocks by 7 blocks of only student housing. There are no regular people. And until you actually live in this society and understand what changes, I think you want to take a tour there. If you have a kid, it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go to UD, but
my guy did.
Both. Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I might or might not have gone to a party or three there. Maybe.
Hard to get into a party.
I'm originally from the Dayton area, for those who don't know, Beaver Creek. But yeah, man. So, all right, moving right along here. We're going to wax poetic about UD the entire show. No, we're not. Caleb Downs' expectations. Mine are just like through the roof. And I think that's fine because this is a kid. How do you lead Alabama in tackles as a true freshman and you're a safety? Not even a middle linebacker, a safety. Over 100 tackles. And listen, I know I've said before tackles at times can be an overrated stat, but dude, over 100 tackles as a true freshman at Alabama. Are you kidding me? And I know it wasn't Saban's best team, but still was a playoff team. Wasn't like they sucked. Caleb Downs is going to be an absolute superstar right away. And I love how they're not messing around with. Let's make him earn the first team reps. First practice, he's out there running with the ones. I'm like, yeah, I mean, there's no reason to screw around with this.
I think that would be relatively insulting. I mean, Nick Saban has made his reputation for winning, but also for being non-hyperbolic about his players. You know what I mean? He was the first one to throw cold water on a young player getting credit. And he almost seemed like he was in a partnership with Downs. Like they would walk next to each other and he'd talk about how, I mean, there are rare players. During the recruiting process, he may not have been the number one ranked player in the country, but I think if you were to ask everybody, and that's really because he was a safety. Well, keep in mind, we're talking about a safety here, which if you're ranking the 22 spots on the football field in order of importance in general terms, safety would be in the low teens. You know what I mean? It's not left tackle, quarterback, cover, corner, or anything like that. And he's just so good that he's taken it to another level. I don't want to say the word like what are my expectations? The Ed Reed of college football. Is that too high?
I love that. Even being a Bengal fan, man, it's like Ed Reed was one of those guys. You played for the Ravens. It was like, my God, was that guy?
He was put on earth to play football.
Everything.
Ed Reed was put on earth to play football. He has like an Einstein IQ for football.
Yeah.
The pedigree and everything. So that's what I'm expecting. And, we said this in the boarding house. You can make the argument that Caleb Williams, is the best transfer of all time based on the best defensive player in the country as a freshman is transferring. The transfer rules have changed, so you get him right away. You get him for theoretically 2 years because he's not staying more than 3. And he was unquestionably the best defensive player in the country that was a freshman. So unless you got like John Elway after his freshman year, I don't understand how you could have a better transfer. And this is where I go back to, as good as everything has been for Ohio State from a offseason technique and approach standpoint, the serendipity factor, which really is just luck, of Nick Saban retiring is completely underrated in my opinion. I keep saying this. He gets a ring if we win. You don't add Caleb Downs, Julian Sayin, and Seth McLaughlin from that literally, of all the things that happened, even the guys coming back, that was at least a possibility when Missouri kicked our butt afterwards. Because it could happen. No one on God's green earth said, you know what? Let's go get Julian Sayin and Caleb Downs. Let's add who many people believe is the best quarterback in the class of 2024. And then the best that just doesn't even make any rational sense. So the serendipity factor, I would just like to thank Nick. And I don't know what third team will join the fold, but you can tell there are certain guys that were only going to go to Ohio State, Alabama, or Georgia. There's a certain level of player. And now I guess another team's got to fit in there, but Georgia and Ohio State are going to benefit greatly here if they haven't already.
So I'm out there on practice on Thursday, speaking of Caleb Downs, and, just watching number 2 out there, running with the first team at safety, just looking like a stud. They're not playing real football yet, so it's not like he's out there laying anybody out. Hopefully he's not going to be laying anybody out anyway. We don't need to get injuries. But I'm thinking, man, seeing a number 2 out there playing safety for the Buckeyes reminds me of Mike Doss. I swear to God, about 5 minutes later, guess who's walking right by me? Yeah. Mike Doss. And I stop him. I say hi to him. We talk for a minute. I'm like, tell you what, man, it's pretty cool seeing a number 2 out there playing safety for the Buckeyes. And I said, if you can live up to what you did, that'd be pretty good. Meaning first team All-American and win a national title. So there you go. Not to put too much on the young man.
He can handle it.
But I think he can do that. I think he can be first team All-American and win a national title. That number 2, I love it. It's been a good number for the Buckeyes. Number 7's been a great number for the Buckeyes. And I love seeing Julian Sayin wearing 10. That's been another good one for the Buckeyes. Rex Kern, Troy Smith, many others. All right, Jeremiah Smith expectations. I talked about this last week, so I have a good source. And I used should we slow down the hype train? And he said, no, you should get on the bullet train with this guy. And this is a source who's like very grounded. So like you talk to anybody, they're like, no, Jeremiah Smith right away. Not saying for sure he's going to start, but he'll be in the top 4. So he'll play starter snaps, it sounds like.
My guess is we see about 2 or 3 snaps of him running, and everyone's like, he has to start or he has to play starters minutes. It's excuse me. It's good that the site's called Bucknuts today, just because I feel like we're homering it up. But I've never seen a freshman look like that. That's just personally. And by the way, I've covered recruiting since the late 90s. I'll tell you who looked incredible in high school and was on the cover of the Washington Post with his sports section with his shirt off was Vernon Davis in high school, but he was only about 6'2". I think Jeremiah Smith looks even better than Vernon Davis did. And Vernon Davis, by the way, is like a Hall of Fame caliber tight end. I don't think he'll make it. But body-wise, you know what I mean? I don't even – there's nothing I could say that would properly put into context what he looks like. He looks like Julio Jones when he was getting ready for the draft Because I went back and looked at pictures of AJ Green and Julio Jones, who he's compared to. That's not what they looked like as freshmen, bro. It's not. They did not look like that. They eventually did. I mean, Julio Jones now looks like that because he's got old man strength and everything. Jeremiah Smith doesn't even have his old man strength yet. You know what I mean? When you start paying taxes and you get a little thicker and just that natural, I mean, I couldn't have higher expectations for a prospect, especially because it's an athletic, it's not quarterback. It's not, I mean, receiver to me, you can make plays as a freshman and be big time. Like, I'll guarantee you the other team is not going to wait to see what he can do and then adjust their defense. You know what I'm saying? Like, usually when there's a young guy out there, like, make him prove it, make him beat man coverage a couple times, then we'll adjust. There will be none of that. They will be adjusted well before the game starts. And then when you think about who else is out there at receiver, seriously, the whole thing just becomes ridiculous. I was doing this the other day with running back. I looked at a ranking of the running backs for next year, and the kid from Ollie from Oklahoma State's ranked first. Then it was Travion and Quinshon Judkins, and they're both better than the guy from Oklahoma State. He just got a ton of carries. So I realized I changed the subject for more gluttonous greatness, but it's hard to not get geeked, to tell you the truth.
Seriously, I mean, I'm over there at practice looking at the roster and looking at the team thinking this might be the most talented Ohio State team that I've seen. And I do not say that lightly.
And Dave.
It was like 2019, 20, even though 2015, just the talent on the 2015, they just weren't motivated. They didn't have the right coaching that year. But especially on the offensive side of the ball, when our buddy Ed Warner, who, by the way, blamed Bucknuts for getting fired from Ohio State for this.
Facts. I kept that for comedy value.
Yeah. So when they promoted him to offensive coordinator after Herman left, that was a disaster. But just by talent alone, that 2015 Ohio State team, so talented. Some of those 90s teams with that fell short, 95, 96, 98. There's others that are just super talented teams. 05, 06. I look around, I'm like, damn, because it's not even just the high-end talent like Caleb Downs. You know, it's like depth everywhere. When Jermaine Matthews is your number 4 corner as a sophomore, oh boy! I tell you what, I mean, we're talking about Caleb Downs coming here. I mean, it's too bad Lathan Ransom didn't come back as a 5th-year senior. They would have been a good tandem. Oh wait, Lathan Ransom did come back as a 5th-year senior. It's ridiculous to me. It's ridiculous, and I absolutely love it. Are we being homers today? Probably, but I think we're also being realistic. This is as stacked a roster as I can ever remember here.
The depth is also like insurance. You know what I mean? Like, the one thing you know about football, like I've said this every year, and I think everyone loves to take shots at me, and I deserve them for being a Cowboys fan. But if you told me the Cowboys would not play the season and just got to go to the playoffs with the team they started the year with health-wise, they will win the Super Bowl. I'm telling you, the football is a war of attrition. With this many good players, they can, I mean, at quarterback, God forbid. How many other teams could survive what they could survive over the course of a season with that kind of depth? So we don't want injuries, but the one thing you know about football is the roster you start with will not be the roster you finish with. Not like basketball, where if you have a great year, you could start the same 5 guys every game and have a great year. Football, that's not going to happen. And when you have 5 stars stacked on top of high 4 stars stacked on top of whatever, you're in great shape.
I tell you what, I'm even excited about this 6'7" Aussie punter. I saw him over there. He walked right by me at the WAC on Tuesday last week when he was visiting. And at the time, he was saying he was going to go visit another school. He wouldn't say which one. He said that it is a team that competes with Ohio State. I'm thinking, is it Michigan? And then they didn't let him leave without him committing. So he's going to be a Buckeye. Nick McLarty, 6'7".
Right.
He's not 6'7", 180, okay? He's like 6'7", 240 or 250. He's a big boy, every bit of 6'7". I like this, man. I mean, look at his videos. He can boom the ball. I mean, a 6'7" punter, that's a big lever to kick a football, man.
Dave, one of my best friends from high school married an Aussie, and they are a fun lot. I also, and if you don't know this, when they say they say right. That's in the middle of the dad's speech. That is one big punter, and if you want to go see a highlight, he kicks it out of the stadium, and it's not like a Burger King commercial or something with Michael Jordan and Larry Bird shooting shots from the rafters. He actually kicks the football out of the stadium. Now it's not the shoe. I think it's some high school or small college establishment, but still, if you kick the ball out of the stadium, impressive.
Yeah, I mean I'm not big on touchbacks for my punters, but if you're gonna do a touchback, just kick it out of the stadium.
At least and if you break free, this guy can concuss you. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man, I love it. Okay, before we move on to other stuff, so like I remember saying last year after the Cotton Bowl, there needs to be an adult in the room on offense. Not that Ryan Day's not an adult, but like you looked around him, it was like Brian Hartline was the offensive coordinator, young guy, first-year offensive coordinator. Justin Fry, big run game coordinator, pretty young guy. He had, was a coordinator at UCLA, but really Chip Kelly was the offensive coordinator. You still had Corey Dennis here as quarterback's coach. And I'm thinking, they had lost Kevin, Ron Wilson. I'm like, they need an adult in the room. That's a figure of speech, to be clear. Boy, Chip Kelly, I mean, the more I think about it, it's just perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Him coming here as an offensive coordinator, we talked about what he's going to do for the offense overall. I think it's going to help the offensive line a lot too. Just Chip Kelly, the more I think about it, man, that was just a walk-off grand slam home run of a hire.
Here's what I got the impression of Chip during his press conference, and I think you characterized it beautifully in that it was kind of surreal just because I've seen Chip Kelly so many times for so many years in press conferences. Okay. And then to see him kind of wearing Buckeye stuff and standing where I've seen so many other people stand and answering questions from people whose voices I recognize. It was just kind of cool as a nutter, but I'll say this, and I would appeal to anyone who has been in a business setup where you can move up the ladder as a salesman. The skills of the top salesman are not necessarily the skills of the guys in charge. And a lot of times they take the top salesman and make him the guy in charge because it's a natural progression. And it's also because you can get paid more and you hit your head on the ceiling. In order to get paid and, maximize your salary, you have to move up to management. This is just me. I got the sense of Chip Kelly that if they would have just let him run the offense for his whole life and not ask him any other questions, he'd have been very happy with that. And that he moved up because that's just what you do. And now that the other parts of it, and he said about the CEO stuff, and I would really encourage people to read some of the quotes coming out from Nick Saban talking about more reasons why he left the team, and that every single player who came, he was upset with the way they reacted. And then the players who he talked to about the next season all asked, am I guaranteed playing time and how much can you pay me? And he's like, I'm out. So I just think, in the long run, everything will be, a little more solid in that respect. But, things have changed, Dave. Things have changed. So
massively. It's crazy how much college football has changed in a short period of time. It really is.
I don't blame Chip Kelly, but this is also the one thing I would come back to. And this is the one thing I say about, why is Charles Barkley so good at what he does? And because they are financially independent.
Right.
Okay. You could fire Chip Kelly tomorrow and he could buy himself the nicest place in Malibu, okay, and never work a day the rest of his life. And he's not eating ramen noodles, although that's become trendy. When I was a kid, ramen was how we lived in college in the summer, but I digress. So
you're right, though. My oldest daughter, my 16-year-old daughter good, because you'll need it when you go to college.
I'm incredulous. I'm like, my stomach, I get like the heebie-jeebies when I see him now, because it reminds me of being, on death's door, hunger-wise, in Hilton Head in the summer, where we had $5 at the end of every night and had to decide one more beer or the Huddle House. Huddle House usually did not win, but I digress again. No, I think Chip's going to be – this is what I wanted to say, too, about this. When we were talking about this leading up to it, and then when he was hired, you and I kind of made a big deal about the Manchester, New Hampshire hookup. We actually underplayed that. He said, when you hear him talk, go back and listen to the press conference. His voice changes when he talks about Ryan Day and how they came up. He starts talking about him like it's his little brother, man. He's like, I've known Ryan his whole life. We went to the same elementary school. I did not know that, and I don't know if Adam Sandler went there either. But his voice changed. This is not fake chemistry, in my opinion.
Oh, no.
This
No,
is
they
like
love each other. They love each other.
That's what I'm saying. So
yeah.
Now, and I get the Bill O'Brien thing. I don't know what really happened behind closed doors there. My assumption is they thought Chip Kelly was going to get one of the NFL jobs. And so it didn't happen. And then it was luck, that kind of serendipity again. I don't know if Nick Saban actually got rid of the guy at Boston College for Bill O'Brien to go up there and 3-card money it. But I couldn't be more thrilled about Chip Kelly. And I'll bet this. And there's another thing. Yes, he's had good players at the last couple stops. Now he's back to where he's got the best players at every position, and he can really mad scientist it. Like, you're not mad scientist now to cover up the fact you don't have a right guard. You know what I'm saying? You're mad scientist now to take advantage of the best freshman receiver ever to walk the planet. So that's just a hypothetical there. But yes, as you can tell, we're excited about Chip. We may need to do something called Chipisms too, because he had a lot of good breakout quotes that you could like woodenize it. But I was very impressed.
He's a smart dude. You can tell he's a historian. Like when someone asked him about something about schematics, he's like, it's not even that complicated. It's not like the annexation of Puerto Rico. Just like random.
We need one other old reference. What was the old reference that I got?
I can't remember that. It was so good though. It was so good. He's like, but just dropping the annexation of Puerto Rico. Like, who does that? He's a very intelligent guy. And you're right. It was surreal sitting there in the first row, just asking him questions after seeing him on TV for all those years. And I loved when I asked him about, are you going to coach from the box or the field? Get into the pros and cons of that. He gave a great answer. He said that, I like seeing the field from the box, but I like being on the field to look my players in the eyes and talk to them. So maybe we can get a zip line to go from the box to the field. We need to make that happen. That'd be great. Another thing we got to make happen.
Hold on a second, Dave. Before you do the ad, I want to make, because I looked it up, the reference he made was to Alexander Haig. And he kind of chuckled. Alexander Haig is essentially Deep Throat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
From the Nixon administration.
Yeah.
And I will add this. First high school reporting job I had, like you had with the Oakwood Register and stuff, I had with the McLean Times. Head coach of McLean High School, I'm not going to say his name now that I think about it, had an affair with Alexander Haig's daughter, and her twins were the best players on the team. So that's how I was introduced to Alexander Haig. And then I was like, oh, Alexander Haig. But I digress. Dave, take it.
Yeah, it's still talking journalism, right? Woodward, Burns,
Vaguely.
Watergate. It all kind of comes back together. Deep Throat. I know. Chip Kelly, man. I mean, he's a smart dude. He's interesting. I like your idea about Chipisms. It's going to remind me of Cooper-isms, but smarter. Cooper's sayings were great. Like the dog's going to bite. He's going to bite as a pup. Y'all want to gamble? You want to gamble with my chips? It don't catch up with you till it catches up with you. All funny stuff, but Chip Kelly, just another level intellectually.
It was impressive.
Right.
He can hold a room now, Dave.
Yeah, and he can break your hand when he shakes it too. By the way, if you get ready to shake Chip Kelly's hand, get ready. That man's got a firm grip. I like it.
Little dude.
I like it. All right, I'll tell you guys about our returning champion, our returning sponsor, Joy Mode. I think I speak for most men when I say we want to be at our best in the bedroom. The issue is that over-the-counter pills that help in that department contain unregulated chemicals, suggest unsafe doses, and include the risk of several other health problems. That's why we partnered with our friends at Joy Mode. Whether you're looking to spice up your intimate moments or increase your confidence in the bedroom, Joy Mode makes all natural and science-backed supplements dedicated helping men perform better across their core functions. Patrick Murphy's always texting us about it, which I'm glad he enjoys it. But I'm like, okay, man, I mean, you don't need to text me at 2 a.m. about this.
No pictures.
I'm glad. No pictures. I'm glad you use Joy Mode. I'm glad you love it, but too much information. But here are the game changers, all right? All ingredients have been assessed in peer-reviewed journals. All ingredients have been studied and researched in humans, okay? Not aliens, humans. I don't know about you, but I'll never go back to prescription or over-the-counter drugs after trying Joy Mode. Small enough to fit in your wallet and take with you on the go. It's the perfect travel companion, as Patrick Murphy will tell you. Go to usejoymode.com/Bucknuts and get 20% off with code Bucknuts at checkout. That's 20% off and free shipping with code Bucknuts at usejoymode.com/Bucknuts. Great sex solved naturally. All right. All Jake Diebler does is win, 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 no matter what. Somehow they've now avoided the games of shame, as I called them in the Big Ten tournament. It looked like they were a lock for one of the games of shame, the 11 through 14 seeds. I thought when Mata was here, I'm like, well, they'll never play one of those games. Like, yeah, they will. But not this year. So he finishes 5-1, Dan. They're sitting there at 19-12 overall. They're 9-11 in the Big Ten. Their net's right there at 50. Dare I say they are 2 wins away from having a net inside the 40 and maybe being an at-large team, because if they beat Iowa, the 7th seed, then they would play Illinois. They beat Iowa and Illinois and get the Big Ten semifinals. They're sitting there with 21 wins.
They're in.
And maybe the committee will take into account the fact that they are a different team under Jake Diebler.
They do take that into account. They do address momentum and injuries in the room. That's a fact. I'm amazed. Amazed is a strong word. Dave, we've talked about this. There's something called the dead cat bounce in Wall Street, where a stock will change management and you get a little boost and then you go back down into the crapper. There's also something called the dead coach bounce. I'm not trying to be rude here. That's actually a term that a lot of people use in the business. And basically it's that you lose your guys. Everyone comes out inspired for a couple games, and then they realize they weren't as good in the first place, and people adjust and move on. That does not look like this team. This team looks like they're playing with a little bit more freedom. I don't know if it's like schematically, but the guys look refreshed. I'm not blaming that on Holtman. Anytime you change coaches, it's just going to change a ton. Holtman did not have a reputation for not getting along with his players, but everybody has their dudes. And it's a fresh slate clean slate for everybody. And basketball, man, I'll tell you this. And one of my things, and I'm very into it, not that many people are happy, okay? Because if you think about it, every one of these guys on Ohio State's team was the best player on their high school team. You come to college, you're not getting as many shots. Your folks start questioning the coach. Things go into the crapper and blah, blah. They seem to have really more accepted their roles. I don't see as many bad shots. The ball, there's a couple extra passes a game that I didn't see in the past. They're playing for each other a little bit more. Maybe they're not fearing the quicker hook. Maybe they've been told they're not getting it. But this is more than the dead coach bounce. This is a different vibe within the team. Now, I don't think they're going to hire Jake Diebler. He just doesn't have any experience as a head coach. But I will say this, he has earned himself some form of reward, whether that's consideration for a smaller job that opens up after the season, whether that's a very high-paying assistant job at Ohio State. He is going to get one of those and is very deserving of those rewards, whichever it is.
I was going to finish the show with that. Is that because that's my utopia, as I've talked about. They bring Dusty May here, who I think would be a great hire. Took FAU to the Final Four last year. And a lot of times you see that one of the Cinderella teams and they fall off the map the next year. He's got them right back this year. They're not that they're going to make the Final Four. I mean, they might, but they'll be right around the 8th seed again. They've got over 20 wins. They're a really good team. And I like his style of play. I like how he mixes up his defenses. He's a relatively young guy at 47. And Dan, I thought he was just waiting for the Indiana job. So I didn't really think it was really a realistic possibility for Ohio State like a week or two ago. But when Indiana decided that they're going to keep Mike Woodson, I was like, whoa. For those who don't know, Dusty May he's an Indiana grad and he was a student assistant under Bob Knight. So that's why I thought he was going to be an Indiana guy. But now with them keeping Woodson, and you have Jeff Goodman, who's as plugged in as anybody when it comes to like coaching news and inside college basketball news. He's out there predicting Dusty May will be the next coach at Ohio State. So let's say that happens. Is it realistic that Jake Diebler, after doing what he's doing right now, would stay on as the top assistant? Is that even realistic in your mind? I hope it happens.
Very realistic. I didn't want to say anything before Goodman came out with it, but because I was sworn to secrecy, but I've heard that it's Dusty May with Diebs as his assistant is what people want. Now, the Wild West wasn't as wild as the coaching in the NCAA scene after the season. It gets nuts. I mean, so yes, hopefully Dusty May is the choice, but and I would think right now, if nothing changed, I think he'll be it. But so many things change between now and the end of the season. You know what I mean? So many things change. So that would be, I think, the ideal. And I do think there's a more. I won't put a percentage on it. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that happened. And you were right about Goodman in that he's not just. This is his thing, the coaching scene. You know what I mean? Like, guys have different things within the college basketball world, and Jeff Goodman is known throughout. So things can change. You know this as well as anybody. You could have a scoop one day and you be right, and the next day you be wrong, because things could change, and there's a lot that could change. But I would go with that as a very likely result.
Yeah, I was the one that reported. I'll never get any credit for this because it lasted 2 weeks. Remember when I broke the story about Bill O'Brien coming here as offensive coordinator? I heard it from a really good source, and I think I beat the great Pete Thamel by like 10 seconds. There was maybe it was 30 seconds.
No, you did.
So I broke a story, and then he leaves 2 weeks later. I'm like, Hafley's screwing us over again.
Still counts.
Jeff Hafley's screwing us over again. But you know what? It actually was a blessing in disguise. Why? Chip Kelly.
Super.
Chip Kelly didn't get Chip Kelly at the time thought he was going to be an offensive coordinator in the NFL. Didn't get the job, but thank God the Seahawks didn't give him the offensive coordinator job. He was the runner-up for that, and all of a sudden he's available when Bill O'Brien decides to go to Boston College. Bam! It all comes together. What an offseason they're having.
It's
all
ridiculous.
Right, so if you're just tuning into the show, they're off this week for spring break. Hopefully everybody stays out of trouble. But we're going to be with you all week on the Bucknuts Morning 5. Dan will be with you again tomorrow. Bill and Mark, as usual, on Tuesday.
We can only hope.
It's great. It's great stuff. It's great stuff. Thanks to Dan. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. We appreciate it. Large audience here on a Monday. Really appreciate you guys. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day.